Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTG Cards with doing another Custom Masters Gathering card review, and today we're reviewing a card by Vulture, or as his name is pronounced, VULTURE! And today we have a card called Evenflow Fencer, a common. I love commons. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We got a double blue 2/3. Okay, so stats-wise, I would say this is above the curve. Even though it's double blue, 2-mana 2/3 in blue is pretty uncommon. So let's see. Before we move on, let me just take a look here and look for a blue mana value 2. I want creature, and I want stats, right? So mana value 2, power is 2, and toughness is 3. I can't really think of any card that does this, but Hammerhead Shark can't attack. This one, when it comes to targeting a spell, sacrifice it. Most of these are really old, and they all tend to have drawbacks. So let's see what we got on yours here. I mean, I know yours is double blue, but this stat line tends to have drawbacks. Anyway, let's see what we got here. We got Infiltrate. Whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, you may have it fight target creature. If you do, remove both creatures from combat. Okay, whenever a creature dealt damage by Evenflow Fencer would die as a result of the damage, return it to its owner's hand instead. Okay. Okay, so sorry, I'm just kind of taking everything in. All right, so far this card definitely seems so this is upside, right? So I think you're definitely, your cost is a little bit low here, even for double blue. A double blue 2/3 with upside is too much for a common. Potentially even an uncommon. Like blue's creatures tend to not be big. They tend to have evasion, right? And the ones that are big have downsides. Usually defender. They're usually defender cards. So, I would keep that in mind. Now, the infiltrate mechanic itself seems interesting. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. So, if you attack with a creature with infiltrate and they have good blocks, they're just going to block it, obviously. They're probably also going to trade if they can. Actually, trading with this card is good for the opponent, right? Because if you attack your 2/3 into their 3/2 or whatever, and they block, you lose the Evenflow Fencer, but then their creature goes back to their hand. It doesn't die, right? So that's actually kind of bad. And okay, so if let's say you have, if you're ahead, or rather, okay, so like let's say you play this and they have a 2/2 in play and you attack. I mean, they're just gonna, well, in this guy's case, it's gonna return that creature to your hand, if you choose to, which is pretty punishing. I mean, that's especially for a repeatable effect. That's pretty punishing. I mean, eventually you'll be able to play things that can block this, right? But, and I do like that you're not, dealing combat damage, because otherwise what you could do is you could just play like some crazy tempo deck where you're like, you know, you play this guy on 2 or whatever, you like, use removal on anything or bounce effects on anything that can like successfully block this, and anything else you just put it back to their hand. So you could like go real ahead, but the fact that you're not dealing any damage, I think, is important on this one. Now this infiltrate effect does happen before combat damage, which, right? So this happens on the the declare blocker step, at the end of the declare blocker step. So you can bounce creatures. So no, okay. So this is only for your creatures that it would be able to kill. This is fairly complex to try and like figure out exactly how this would play out. It's certainly interesting. Here's one thing though that does kind of feel a little strange with this card. So this infiltrate mechanic has fight on it, which seems really odd on a blue card. I mean, infiltrate seems like a blue mechanic. Like it's something a blue creature would do, is infiltrate. But the fact that the creatures fight is a little odd. And the fact that, on a blue card, I mean, and the fact that like this thing can never trade, and not only that, but it's kind of, what am I trying to say? So, okay, so basically when this thing attacks and becomes and isn't blocked, you can essentially like bounce one of their smaller creatures. But it's kind of a weird roundabout way of doing it, because it's like, okay, well, first you attack and they don't block, right? Then you have to fight that creature, and then it's like, well, but instead of that creature dying, it goes back to its hand. So there's kind of like a weird, like extra misdirection step here, and it feels to me like infiltrate might work better if you made it a little bit more open to other effects rather than just tacking fight on here. You may want to consider doing something like, whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, it infiltrates, targeting a creature or something like that, right? And then don't use that exact wording, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So you basically just say like, okay, well, whenever it attacks and isn't blocked, you get an effect, right? And then here you would say something like, well, whenever Evenflow Fencer infiltrates, return a creature, with power 2 or less to it, or power 2 or less to its owner's hand, or something along that line, right? Because that way there isn't this sort of weird like misdirection here where it's like, so again, sorry, I'm like jumping all over the place because I'm in. Oops, sorry, I muted my mic. Okay, so basically, like my point, the point that I'm trying to make is you have fight on here on a blue mechanic, and presumably you have infiltrate maybe in other colors, but here it's on a blue mechanic. Fight really only shows up in green and sometimes red, and both of those colors don't feel like they would really have infiltrate as a mechanic. It seems like maybe like a blue or a black mechanic. And the fact that like if you don't infiltrate and you trade with a creature, it's like really bad for you because you bounce their creature instead of it dying. Just that whole combination of things just makes this card feel a little bit awkward. I like what you're trying to go for here. I mean, it's certainly interesting, and like thinking about how it would play out is interesting. It is very much a like it's very much like an effect that is good when you're ahead, but bad when you're behind. Which I think you should be a little careful about that. Obviously, there are ways you can get your creature in, without just straight up attacking. Or what I mean is that you can play effects to help your creature infiltrate, right? You can give it unblockable via some sort of instant or sorcery. You can freeze creatures or whatnot, right? So that part is cool. I think infiltrate is neat. I like the idea of it. If I were designing this mechanic, I would remove this fight clause and this remove both creatures from combat thing, and just say whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, do a thing. So in fact, I wouldn't make it a keyword ability. I would make it one of those sort of, I can't remember again what these are called, but it's basically it's like Metalcraft. It's a mechanic. Sorry, if you don't know Metalcraft. Metalcraft. It's like one of these, right? It's like, here's a recurring thing in the set and a little keyword that sort of helps you kind of understand that all these effects kind of are sort of trigger in a similar fashion, right? So what you might want to do is just do like infiltrate dash, whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, do a thing, right? And I think that would make this card just a lot smoother, where you just say infiltrate, whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, return target creature with power 2 or less to its owner's hand. And then if you really want to, you can say, if you do, this creature deals no combat damage this turn, or something like that, right? And that is just not only is that a much smoother and simpler design here, but it also means that now your infiltrate mechanic has a lot more design space. It doesn't always have to be about fighting. It could be about anything, right? It could be whenever this creature attacks and isn't blocked, the opponent discards a card. It could be you draw a card. It could be anything, right? So that's kind of the route that I would probably go with a card like this. I find this card to be a little bit overly complex for what it's trying to do, and I think that it's a bit too strong for its cost. So those are kind of the strikes I have against this card. But I do like what you're trying to do here. I just think that maybe your execution can be improved a little bit. So I'm going to give this card a 6 out of 10 for the reasons mentioned. But I think this one has potential. I honestly think that had you given this card to me, and it was worded in a way somewhat similar to the way I worded it, and it was maybe like 1 and a blue for like a 2/1, I think I would have loved this card, right? I think I would have found it quite good. But here I think it's doing a little too much, and what for what it's doing, it's a little bit too complex. So I have to give it a 6 out of 10 for that. But I do think that this design has some potential. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.